If you thought the biggest moment in the Lioness Season 3 premiere was the drone battle in Ukraine, think again. The most important scene actually happens before the opening title. Jo McNamara is driving away from her house after sharing one of the happiest mornings we've ever seen with her family. Then, out of nowhere, two vehicles box her in. The attack is fast, coordinated, and terrifying. Jo immediately realizes what's happening and screams into the phone, "I'm blackjack! I'm blackjack!" before she's dragged away. That scene isn't just there to shock us. It's asking one massive question that changes everything we know about this season. How did they know exactly where she would be? How did they know her route, her timing, and even her identity? Those answers don't point to Russia. They don't point to terrorists. They point somewhere far more dangerous. Someone inside the CIA knew exactly who Jo was and handed her over. Before we break that down, here's a quick recap. If you enjoy deep breakdowns, hidden clues, and theories that dig beneath the surface, hit subscribe before you disappear into another classified mission. It's completely free, and unlike Jo's cover identity, it won't get exposed. The episode begins by showing Jo doing something we've almost never seen before. She's home. She trains in her garage and shares breakfast with Neil and the girls, and for a few brief moments her life actually looks normal. Sheridan deliberately gives us peace before ripping it away. Jo reminds Neil not to get used to this routine because work always comes first, and seconds later, that's exactly what happens. On her way out, she's ambushed, surrounded by two vehicles, and kidnapped in broad daylight. Then, the story jumps back 6 months to explain how everything started. Jo is sent into the middle of the war in Ukraine to capture Alexei Yurimov, a valuable Russian intelligence officer hiding beneath the battlefield. The mission is brutal. Drones fill the sky, artillery never stops, and the battlefield feels like World War I colliding with futuristic warfare. Jo's team successfully captures Yurimov, removes his tracking implant, and extracts him safely. But after the mission, Jo quietly says something that almost everyone overlooks. They killed a lot of people for a chess piece in a war that has nothing to do with them. That line isn't about politics, it's about manipulation. Jo has started realizing that someone else is moving the pieces across the board. When she finally returns home late that night, another shocking moment unfolds. Two men claiming to be state police knock on her door and tell her to step outside. Jo immediately notices something isn't right. Their story falls apart almost instantly. They force their way inside, and Jo kills both attackers before they can reach her family. As Neil walks outside in complete disbelief, Jo delivers one chilling sentence. "I'm blown." That line tells us everything. Jo doesn't say she was attacked. She doesn't say someone found her house. She says her cover is blown. That isn't the language of someone surprised by an assassination attempt. That's the language of an undercover intelligence officer who knows classified information has escaped into enemy hands. Now look closely at both attacks. The men at her house knew exactly where she lived. They arrived only minutes after she returned from one of the most secretive CIA operations imaginable. They knew Neil was inside. They knew Jo would answer the door herself. They weren't searching for her. They already knew where she was. Fast forward 6 months, and the kidnappers intercept her only a few yards from her driveway. Again, they know exactly when she'll leave, exactly which vehicle she's driving, and exactly where to strike before any security can respond. That's not surveillance. That's intelligence. Professional intelligence. The kind of intelligence that comes from classified files. The CIA protects the identities of officers like Jo with layers of compartmentalization. Safe houses, aliases, restricted personnel records, and operational secrecy exist for one reason. Even many people inside the agency don't know the true identities of covert officers. Yet someone knew where Jo slept, where her children lived, what route she drove every morning, and how quickly she would respond under pressure. Those details don't leak from the battlefield. They leak from headquarters. This explains why Sheridan spends so much time showing Jo's peaceful family life before either attack. The audience isn't simply watching Jo at home. We're watching information the enemy should never possess. Every shot of that house becomes evidence that somebody has opened the CIA's vault and handed over its secrets. Then there's Alexei Yurimov. His capture looks like a major American victory, but the episode quietly plants doubts from the beginning. Jo even questions why someone so valuable is protected by inexperienced North Korean soldiers instead of elite Russian operators. Nothing about his security matches his importance. The mission feels strangely convenient. That changes the entire operation. Yurimov wasn't simply a target, he was bait. The CIA believed it was removing a critical Russian asset from the battlefield. In reality, the mission exposed everyone involved. Once Joe stepped into Ukraine, someone was tracking every move, every helicopter, every communication, every extraction route. Capturing Yurimov didn't end an operation. It triggered one. That also explains why Joe's enemies don't immediately kill her. If assassination was the objective, there were dozens of easier opportunities. A sniper could have ended her life before she reached the front door. An explosive could have destroyed her vehicle. Instead, both attacks are personal. They want her alive long enough to understand that she's been compromised. They want her looking over her shoulder every time Neil answers the front door or her daughters leave for school. Fear becomes the weapon. And fear is far more useful than a bullet. This is why the kidnapping at the beginning of the season suddenly feels different after seeing everything that happened 6 months earlier. It isn't random revenge. It's the final stage of a plan that started the moment Joe accepted the Ukraine mission. Her enemies have been studying her for months, learning her routines, waiting until the perfect moment to strike. The biggest mystery now isn't who kidnapped Joe. It's who opened the door for them. Every conversation inside the CIA suddenly becomes suspicious. Every briefing raises new questions. Every person with access to Joe's operational file becomes a possible suspect. Someone didn't just betray an officer. Someone betrayed the entire Lioness program. Sheridan has always built his stories around one simple truth. The most dangerous enemy isn't the one charging toward you across the battlefield. It's the one sitting quietly beside you while pretending to be an ally. Season 3 has only begun, but Episode 1 already reveals its real mystery. Joe isn't fighting to survive another covert mission. She's fighting an enemy who already knows everything about her. And if someone inside the CIA has been feeding classified information to America's enemies, then Joe's kidnapping is only the beginning. The next question isn't whether Joe escapes. The next question is who she can trust once she does. One detail that becomes impossible to ignore is Joe's own reaction after killing the fake state police officers. She doesn't stop to question who they were or why they came. She immediately understands the bigger picture. Her first instinct is to call for federal backup, and her first conclusion is, "I'm blown." That response tells us this isn't the first warning she's noticed. There were probably small signs before the audience ever entered the story. Missions that felt compromised, targets that seemed prepared, operations that became harder than they should have been. Episode 1 simply shows the moment those suspicions become undeniable. Joe isn't discovering that someone knows who she is. She's finally accepting that someone has known for a long time. The timing of both attacks is another clue that points toward an insider instead of an outside enemy. Nobody attacks Joe while she's surrounded by Delta operators in Ukraine. Nobody attacks her inside CIA headquarters. They wait until she's alone, away from military protection, back in civilian life. That means whoever planned these operations had access to her classified travel schedule, knew exactly when she would return home, and understood the gaps in her security. Those aren't details collected by watching her house for a few days. Those are details pulled directly from operational reports and internal briefings. Every successful ambush begins with good intelligence, and in Joe's case, the intelligence appears almost perfect. Then there's the emotional side of the story, which Sheridan rarely includes without a reason. The premiere spends valuable screen time showing Joe laughing with Neil, eating breakfast with her daughters, and enjoying a normal morning before everything falls apart. That isn't there simply to make the audience care. It's there to show exactly what the enemy wants to destroy. Joe has survived firefights, bombings, and undercover operations across the world. But her greatest weakness has never been physical danger. It's her family. Whoever leaked her identity understood that targeting Joe's home would hurt far more than targeting Joe herself. The battlefield has officially moved from foreign soil into her living room. This also changes the meaning of the episode's opening kidnapping. Once the audience reaches the end of the premiere, that first scene no longer feels like a random cliffhanger. It feels like the payoff to a carefully planned operation that has been unfolding for 6 months. Every decision Joe made after Ukraine, every conversation she had inside the CIA, and every classified mission she accepted pushed her one step closer to that roadside ambush. The kidnappers didn't suddenly find her. They patiently built a complete picture of her life until there was nowhere left for her to hide. That's the kind of operation only professionals or insiders could execute. If all of these clues are pointing in the same direction, then Season 3 isn't asking whether Joe can defeat another foreign enemy. It's asking whether America's most elite intelligence agency has already been infiltrated from within. That would make this the most dangerous threat the series has ever explored, because spies are trained to fight enemies they can identify. They're far less prepared to fight someone who sits in the same briefing room, reads the same classified files, and quietly passes those secrets to the other side. If Episode 1 is any indication, Joe's greatest battle this season won't be escaping captivity. It will be exposing the person who betrayed her before they sacrifice someone else.